Today we are going to be introducing some point slope, reintroducing some point slope, and getting into some graphing, some situational linear equations. But first, let's do this warm-up. Let me remind you how to use the point slope formula. Hopefully you already, in your journal, wrote this down and tried to solve this. Now, I tried to really give it away what's going on here by these arrows. So hopefully you were able to write this. Y equals m, which is the slope, 3, and then parentheses, x is always x, but minus x1, x1 is your x value of your point, so minus 2, parentheses, and then plus 3. If you got that far, that's good, but that's not it. You want to make sure it's as reduced or as simplified as possible, so it's mx plus b. So what should we do next to get this simplified? You see the parentheses? What should we do with that? It is going to be multiplying because we're going to distribute the 3 into the parentheses, right? So y equals what? 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times negative 2 is minus 6, and then bring down plus 3. This is almost there. I have 2 constants I need to simplify by combining like terms. So y equals 3x, and then negative 6 plus 3 is minus 3. Now, that's cool. If you needed to graph it, of course, we would remember that slope is usually a fraction. 3 over 1 is fine, or 3x is fine. All right, does that look familiar from Algebra 1? If not, it's all right, because you're learning it right now, and you are gaining learning. So, number 2, we're going to write this down again. What? Don't say that. Y equals m x minus x1 plus y1. All right, we're going to replace m with what? 1/2. Parentheses, x. Now, what goes right here? So, it's supposed to be minus, and then we have x1, which is negative 4. So let me tell you, the most common error I see is people putting x minus 4 right here. It's supposed to be subtracting a negative. Now, here's one way to write it. Minus negative 4. And then plus y1 is plus 5. Now, minus a negative, you've probably learned, is equivalent to addition, adding, right? So this is really x plus 4. So if you wrote x plus 4, that's fine. It's because you know minus a negative, right? So whenever I see a minus a negative, I like to cover it up with a plus sign. So you can do that too if you want. Okay, now let's do the distribution. 1/2 times x, 1/2 times 4. So what is 1/2 times x? Like any coefficient, you just put it in front. 1/2 x, and then 1/2 times 4. What's half of 4? It is 2. If you did not know how to do that in your brain, you could still use your calculator. 1/2 times 4, you would get 2. So plus 2, and then bring down the plus 5. And like last time, combine like terms. Y equals 1/2 x plus 7. Okay? So, in the future, in this class, if you're given a point and a slope, this is how you're going to get it into y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form. Cool? And I will give you the formula. You just got to know how to use it because y'all have learned this. So, let's go ahead and look at the packet you grabbed on the way in. It's called Writing Mania. It's written right here. And the first part is us covering x and y intercepts and getting back into equations, and then we'll be graphing. So, for today, everyone's got it from the front over there, and everyone has a straight edge to make straight lines. All right. Number 1, for each of the graphs below, write down the x-intercept and the y-intercepts. Write your answers as coordinate points. So, first of all, x-intercept and y-intercept assumes you know what axes these are. So, x-axis is which one? Which one's the x? Horizontally. Everybody. Everybody. X is horizontal, yeah. And y is vertical. So let's go ahead and put a label on each of those. Now, x-intercept, let's go ahead and put a point where the line crosses the x. Boom. And let's put a point where the line crosses the y right there. Now, what is the coordinates of this point right here, the x-intercept? So I hear a couple things. Is it 4, 0 or 0, 4? Okay. So here's how you tell. X-intercept has a number for the x and a 0 for the y, because it's on the axis. It doesn't go up or down. Y-intercept is flipped. Y-intercept has a y value, and then it's, let me fix that. Y-intercept has a y value and 0 for the y, the x, sorry. Okay, so what's the x-intercept? 4, 0, and then the y-intercept is 0, 5. Okay, I'll give you a little time. I want you to do the next 3 on your own. Let's see what we get together. All right, so on the top right one, what did y'all get for the x-intercept? 4, 0, because it's right here. Okay. What about the y-intercept? Who got 0, 5? Okay. So it's 0, negative 5. Make sure when you go down, that's negative. Did you really get it? Did you get negative 5 or 5? Oh, okay. All right, right here. What'd y'all get? Negative 5, 0. Anybody get positive 5? Nope. All right. 0, comma what for y-intercept? All right. So y'all are pros at this. Very good. What about x here? 5, 0. Y-intercept. 0. Did I hear 4? Negative 4. Yay. All right. Solid. Now, that's if you have a graph. Ignore that. That's an accident. That place never existed. Okay. So, but seriously, on the next page, we are going to take that same concept. Instead of having a graph, we have an equation. So let's see what we can extrapolate here. If it says find the x-intercept from an equation, what did we just learn that the x-intercept has for the y? 0. Okay? Very good. So for all x-intercepts, all you got to do is take that equation and make sure you plug in 0 for the other one, which is y. Okay? And when we get down here to y-intercept, you're going to be plugging in 0 for the other one, which is x. Okay? So let's plug in 0 into this x value. 4x minus 2y equals 12 is going to become 4 parentheses 0 minus 2y equals 12. Oh, yes, I did. My bad. 4x minus 2 parentheses 0 equals 12. My bad. You plug in 0 for y to get the x-intercept. Okay, so negative 2 times 0 is 0. That's gone. Okay, so we're just going to write 4x equals 12. And what's my last step? Divide by 4. What do I get? Alright, so x equals 3. I want to write it as a coordinate pair, so what would I write? 0, 3 or 3, 0? 3, 0, because it's an x-intercept. X before y. 3, 0. Solid. Next one, again, x-intercept, plug in 0 for y. So this is going to be 0 equals 3x minus 6. What shalt I do first? Get rid of the loner, minus 6, by doing the opposite, adding 6 to both sides. So I get 6 equals 3x. Now what do I do? Divide by 3, and I get x is 2, therefore my coordinate point is 2, 0. I want you to try the y-intercept. Y-intercept is when what? X equals 0. Alright, you try these two. Alright, so let's do this. Did you set it up like this, plugging in 0 for x, and then you get negative 2y equals 12, dividing by negative 2, and y equals -6. 0, comma, -6, right? For the y-intercept. If you wrote it the other way around, be careful when you write it. X is 0 again, so y equals 3 times 0 minus 6. Hopefully you're able to recognize that if it's an mx plus b form, this is your y-intercept. Because when you plug in 0, there it is. Y equals -6. This just so happens to be the same y-intercept. Okay. So, let's try the next two. Now, I'm going to give you a couple minutes on these two. I want you to try these on your own, and then we'll go over them together. These are a little more challenging, but let's see what you can do, okay? All right, go ahead. Here we go, here we go. Do y'all have all the answers already? Because y'all are so fast? Let's do this. X-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. Three x equals 15. Divide by 3, what do we get? X equals 5. So my x-intercept is what? What do I write here? 5, comma 0. Cool. And then, this time we plug in 0 for x for the y-intercept. These cancel. -4y equals 15. Divide by -4. And this time we don't get a nice clean whole number. We're going to get decimal. Is it -3.75? So 0, comma, -3.75. Try not to get those mixed up. And then for B, again, plug in 0 for x. Y equals, plug in 0 for y to get the x-intercept. First step, what should we do? Get rid of this loner, so minus 6, minus 6. 0 minus 6 is negative 6. That equals 2/3 x. And now, here's the question. How do we get rid of a fraction when we're solving for a variable? Instead of changing it to a decimal and then doing something with that, there's a way to remove it in its fraction form. So we always do opposites. So what's the opposite of a fraction? What? Multiply by what? Okay, very good. So it's called multiplying by the reciprocal. You take the fraction and you flip it. Do not change the sign. This is not perpendicular stuff we're talking about. Okay? So if ever you're solving an equation and you're just trying to get rid of a fraction, you can multiply by its flip, its reciprocal. Yes. When you multiply 2/3 times 3/2, that equals 1, and 1x is what you're looking for. So both sides times 3/2, fractions cancel. 3/2 times negative 6 is negative 9. Okay, you can use your calculator if you were not sure on that one. So negative 9, comma 0. And then for the y-intercept, whoops. For the y-intercept, we again plug in 0 for x. Y equals 6, so that's 0, comma 6. Any questions on those two, or on number 2, A and B? Number 3, now this is a table, so it can be easy. What are we looking for the x-intercept on this table? No. Okay, so we look for when y is 0. Just like the graph and the equation, x-intercept is when y is 0. So, on the y, I'm looking for a 0. Ta-da! So y, 0. So this is my x-intercept. So there's no where to write it. We'll just write it out here. X-intercept is what, comma what? 2, 0. And what am I looking for my y-intercept now? Okay, a 0 for x. So boom, there it is. Y-intercept. What, comma what? 0, negative 6 is my coordinate point pair. Alright, and then you can take that and go to the next page. Now let me clarify on here because some people are getting stuck. Notice the instructions. This is a new thing, this is a new section. It's old information though. This says to do what? Solve each equation for y. Solving for y. I'm not asking you for the x-intercept or y-intercept anymore. Okay, we did that. Completion. Now, new section. So I want you to remember how to solve for y. Do you remember doing this on 2 warm-ups the last couple of days? Not today. I got a head nod. Woo! So, I want you to solve for y. And then, once you have it in y equals mx plus b, you will know your m and your b, and then you can graph it, because you know what to graph first, right? Is it m or b that you graph first? B for beginning, right? So, go ahead and solve that for y, and then graph it. So our first step is always to move the x, right? So minus 5x, minus 5x. Put this in front. So we bring down 2y equals negative 5x plus 12. What's my second step? Divide by 2. And then I get y equals negative 5 over 2x plus 6. Alright, so y'all are able to graph that because you know to graph the b first and then rise over run. So let's do that. What's my m? Negative 5 over 2, and then b is 6. What do we, so we said b first, put a point. Now negative 5 over 2, which way are we rising? Down 5, and then always to the right. Alright, so you're able to use your straight edge to make a straight line, right? So let's do that. I will do my best. So,
wouldn't it be on the opposite side? Because it's a negative 2.5.
what's negative 2.5?
The
M is always a fraction because you have to rise over run. So negative 5 means down 5, 2 means right 2. Oh. Number 5, same thing. Get rid of the x, so minus 6x. Hold on. Minus 6x. So 2y equals negative 6x plus 10, because this goes right there. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Y equals negative 3x plus 5. And the slope, if it's a whole number, we put it over 1. So we have negative 3 over 1 and 5 as our slope and y-intercept. So let's graph this at positive 5 as my y-intercept. Start at the b for beginning, and then down 3, right 1 is my slope. Okay. Now, you're going to combine all the skills that we've been reviewing on the next part. So you're going to be given a unique situation for 12 different graphs, and that's what the next 12 blank graphs are for. It's going to be something that we're primarily doing tomorrow, but we have a little time today, so I'll give you the preview of it. But what you're going to do is, okay, now these are the 12 different ones, okay, but around the room, they're going to look like this. So, for example, number 1, you're going to have to be able to write an equation of a line that contains the point of 3, negative 4, and has a slope of 5. So, when it comes to points and a slope, at the top of your page, I put the point slope formula. Just like our warm-up today, you can write an equation. And just spoiler alert, when you try to graph it, once you get that equation, you might run into some difficulty. So let me tell you, it's easier to graph than get the equation, because I bet you can find a point 3, negative 4 and do a slope of 5 over 1, right? So, all that to say, you can start now. I want you to get the equations and graph these 12 graphs, and they are posted around the room when you get to them. All right?